Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a big one, Milton Friedman's Capitalism and Freedom. Now, this is easily one of the most influential and, frankly, one of the most controversial economic books of the entire 20th century. So let's break down its powerful core arguments.
So Friedman kicks things off by going right after this incredibly famous line from President John F. Kennedy. He basically says, hold on a second. He argues that both parts of this question, they kind of miss the point about the proper relationship between you and the government in a truly free society. Friedman completely flips this idea on its head. For him, government isn't a master that we're supposed to serve. And it's not a guardian handing out gifts either. No, the government should be a tool for us. So the real question we should be asking is, what can we, all of us as individuals, do through government to achieve our own goals and, most importantly, protect our own freedom? And that brings us to the absolute core argument of the entire book. It's a really powerful and, for its time, radical idea that connects two things we often think of as being totally separate: economics and politics.
Okay, so here it is. Friedman's central claim is that economic freedom isn't just some nice-to-have bonus that makes a country prosperous. He claims it is an absolutely essential ingredient for political freedom, a non-negotiable prerequisite. In his view, you simply cannot have one without the other, period.
To back this up, he looks to history. He basically throws down a challenge. Try to find one single example, anywhere in the world, at any point in time, of a society that had a large degree of political freedom but didn't also have a free market. Friedman says, it just doesn't exist. The two are fundamentally linked.
All right, so how does this connection actually work? I mean, what's the mechanism? How does having a free market actually protect our political rights? Well, for Friedman, it all boils down to one key concept: the separation of power. This slide really breaks down his logic perfectly. See, Friedman saw the concentration of power as the single greatest threat to our liberty. And look at the contrast here. Political power tends to be centralized and, let's face it, coercive. But economic power in a competitive market, it's spread out, it's dispersed, and it's based on people voluntarily cooperating. So by keeping these two separate, economic power acts as a crucial check, a counterbalance to political power. And the way it does that is actually incredibly simple but profound. It gives you options. It gives you alternatives. Think about it. In a free market, a seller can't really coerce you because you can just go buy from someone else. An employer can't totally control you because you can always go find another job. The market itself provides a built-in escape hatch. So that's the theory. But Friedman uses some really fascinating real-world examples to show how this separation of power actually protects individual liberty, especially for people who hold unpopular opinions. Let's go back to the 1930s. From 1933 all the way to the start of World War II, you've got Winston Churchill desperately trying to scream from the rooftops, warning the British people about the threat of Nazi Germany. Now, you'd think a guy like Churchill, a prominent member of parliament, could get on the radio whenever he wanted to, but nope. During this critical time, he was consistently blocked from speaking on the British radio. So why? What was going on? The answer is simple. The BBC was a government monopoly. The people in charge decided his views were just too controversial. So in this case, political power and economic power, control over the airwaves, were one and the same. And the result? Censorship of a vital message at a vital time. Okay, now let's jump over to the US for another example. The Hollywood blacklist in the 1940s and 50s. This was a really aggressive attempt to stop writers who were suspected of being communists from getting work. A clear-cut case of trying to silence a particular political view. But here's the fascinating part. The blacklist ultimately fell apart. Why? Because of the market. The simple profit motive turned out to be more powerful than all the political pressure. I mean, this quote from a producer just says it all. We have to buy the best script we can to make money for our stockholders. The writer's politics didn't matter as much as the quality of the script. So because that economic power was spread out among many different competing studios and producers, it created a massive check on this political campaign. The impersonal, profit-driven nature of the market actually became a refuge, a place where people with unpopular ideas could still make a living. So if the free market is the star player, what role does the government play in all this? Now, Friedman's not an anarchist. He argues that government has a very limited but absolutely critical role. He likes to use the analogy of an umpire in a game. The umpire's job isn't to play, right? It's to make sure there's a fair game. So for Friedman, the government should do three key things.
First, it sets the rules of the economic game, defining property rights, enforcing contracts. Second, it acts as that umpire, making sure everyone plays by the rules. And third, it only steps in to fix major problems, what he calls market failures. Now, this idea of a limited government umpire, well, it has some pretty radical implications, especially when you hold it up against what most modern governments actually do. And this is really where Friedman's ideas become the most controversial. He has a pretty long list of common government activities that he argues are way outside of that limited umpire rule. For him, these are all examples of the government jumping onto the field and trying to play the game instead of just enforcing the rules. I mean, just take a look at this list. We're talking about everything from farm price supports and rent control to minimum wage laws and even Social Security. From Friedman's perspective, all of these things, no matter how well-intentioned they might be, have one thing in common. They are a government intrusion. They replace voluntary exchange with coercion, and every time they do that, he argues, our freedom is reduced. So here's the crucial takeaway. Friedman draws a bright, clear line in the sand. He argues there's a huge difference between a government that acts as a neutral umpire to protect freedom and a government that tries to achieve specific social goals, which he believed always inevitably restricts freedom. And this really gets to the central tension of his work. It leaves us with a provocative question that is just as relevant today as it was in 1962. When we ask our government to do more, to solve more problems, what are the potential trade-offs? What freedoms, both economic and political, might we be giving up in the process?